At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew, too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hi, welcome. We got a lot of great topics tonight, and here are some of them. Here are some of the things you're going to learn on the night show. Is that flirty wink about romance or a free drink? Some people flirt for love, others for leverage. In about 10 minutes' time, we'll unpack why some who flirt a lot might be manipulating you with hidden motives. We'll teach you how not to mistake that flirtatious smile, that flirtatious comment with somebody expressing genuine interest. Then, we've lived with dogs for thousands of years. But how good are we at reading how they feel? Most pet owners think they can read their pup. But when studied by animal behaviorists, let's face it, we're not great at it. Worse still, the way we feel when we interpret a dog's face, we sort of project that onto the dog. We'll give you details of that study halfway through the hour. That is some of the things we'll cover on tonight's show. There will be more, but for now, let's dive in. And in McDonald's-based news, we are joined by special foreign correspondent Tony Five in London, England, to discuss the arrival of the McRib and some surprises that customers aren't happy about. So much so that there's a major lawsuit that McDonald's is facing. Tony Five, welcome to the program.
Hello, David. How are you, my friend?
I am Mick doing great. We're trying to get a McDonald's sponsorship
I know,
here, clearly.
It'd be wonderful if we could. I have never, ever understood that whole popularity with the McRib. It's kind of a pop culture icon when it comes. It's always a limited release, and it's for those who don't know, it's a burger, and it's called the McRib, but they have like a beef patty.
It's a
covered
pork
in like
patty.
barbecue.
It's a pork rib, yeah.
Covered in like barbecue sauce, but it's not really that. It's kind of gelatinous. I find it quite sickly. People do love it. It's in like a sub roll or whatever, but people go crazy for it. Oh my God, they should bring the McRib back. And I don't know whether it's kind of a joke in on itself, but people have like sort of sued McDonald's because it genuinely, people think they've been misled because it's not a genuine rib, a real pork rib.
A 45-page lawsuit was filed at the end of last month in northern Illinois by a bunch of plaintiffs. And they're saying the McRib doesn't really have, let's just say the word allegedly because McDonald's legal counsel has deep pockets. But they're saying that it doesn't have real rib in it. It's just random pork parts.
Well, can I tell you what the constituents are? And then you'll maybe rethink it. So it's a process combination of cuts such as the shoulder, the heart, tripe. I have no idea what tripe is, but it sounds disgusting. And scalded stomach, David. Scalded stomach, not just regular stomach, scalded stomach. Apparently, none of which are just rib meat.
It's what the lawsuit claims. We want to say that very clearly. Allegedly. Yeah, don't sue us, McDonald's. In fact, sponsor us. We love you.
I can imagine Ronald McDonald just kicking your door in and just having a go at you. But okay, carry on.
No, it would be the Hamburglar would come in and rough me up.
That's right. Yeah, Hamburglar. Oh, what happened to him? Do you reckon he's really behind bars? I feel like he's typecast. Like he maybe did something many, many years ago. And for the last 40 years, he just has to wear the stripy outfits and stuff.
Yeah, the sorry state of the legal system. He just can't get a job because, he got convicted of a crime. Yeah. Now, every time he goes in for a background check to get an honest job, he just fails it.
He absolutely fails it all the time. And that Zorro hat he wears doesn't do him any favors, does it?
It does not. He's got a real record with Grand Theft Hamburger. That's what they're saying. A tripe, by the way, is like one of the stomachs of a cow, and it's delicious if prepared well. But it is very much like a strong, meaty, like livery organ meat flavor for sure. Very lovely texture. I feel like you would like tripe. I over Thanksgiving, you tried liver and you liked it. Maybe you would like tripe.
Did I?
Yes, you had a little bit of liver.
Oh, no, the liver parfait. I did try that.
Yeah.
Yes, the chopped liver. Yes, I did. I did. That was nice.
I mean, you didn't love
that
it,
was
but
nice.
you didn't hate it.
No.
Okay, but back to this lawsuit. McDonald's is saying their response to this is that it is a distortion of the facts, and many of the claims in the lawsuit are inaccurate. But I feel like that's maybe an admission of guilt. They're saying many of the claims, not all the claims.
Well, they say it's 100% pork, which it is. I mean, it all comes from a pig. I get it.
But it has to be rib for it to be a McRib. And if apparently they're advertising that it's rib.
I guess so. But, like their quarter pounders, are they genuinely all a quarter pound? I don't know, and their cheeseburgers, do they have cheese in it, David? What is the meaning of life?
True. If I sold you chicken wings, but they were chicken legs, reconstituted in some food plant to make them look like wings, that would be a lie.
I guess so. But if you're going to McDonald's and really expecting sort of 5-star Michelin dining,
with organic farm to table.
Organic, exactly. Free range chickens. I think you've gone to the wrong place, my friend. I think these people are just freeloaded. They're trying their luck.
All right. Our next topic is, I love these articles, like 8 ways that you will find love if only you eat pepperoni pizza. There is a report out there that our producer sent us about people who clean as they cook. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you display these 8 psychological traits. I'm not even sure we'll get through them all, but let's go through them. Are you someone who cleans while you cook, Tony?
I do. I fundamentally disagree with this research, if you want to call it research. God knows what university is doing this research on psychology about people washing up. But I do like these clickbait articles like, if you wear your socks on the other side of the foot, you will attract women from Italy. I love stuff like that. And I want to investigate more of that. But this one basically says if you're a washer-upper while you cook, so as you clean as you cook, which I am, you display, more sort of organised, you have less sort of stress in your life, which is, I disagree with, because I have more stress in my life and I do clean, while I cook. I don't like a dirty surface. And you?
I partially clean while I cook, but when I finish the meal, that's when, like, the very last items I use, I don't wash them before I put the meal on the table. My girlfriend, on the other hand, trashes the kitchen.
Yes.
And it's so annoying because when I cook, she cleans. When she cooks, I clean. But this is a problem for our therapist, not a problem for this show. Number 1, if you clean while you cook, you have stronger executive function, which means you're better at, like, memory, self-control, flexible thinking.
Yep.
Number 2, you have less stress and anxiety. Like you said, Tony, I don't believe that's true because I'm always stressed and I'm always anxious and I clean while I cook.
Number 3, they possess higher conscientiousness, so you're kind of more reliable in your commitments. I don't know. I can't agree with that.
I actually agree with that one. I think I am a little bit more of a conscientious person and I do cook while I clean.
Okay. Number 4.
How about this one? You demonstrate superior impulse control. That's not true of you, that's for sure.
No, I have the worst impulses ever, so that's fine. Number 5, spatial intelligence, enhanced spatial intelligence. I mean, I guess so, because you're looking at a work surface and you're trying to...
I feel like some psychologists, like, her husband trashes the kitchen while he cleans, and she's like, I'm going to write this article because I'm a psychologist and this is based on science. She's just writing it so her husband will read it, I feel.
And it's completely directed at him. Somewhere in this, article, it says Brian. They haven't redacted it. It's just got his name in there somewhere. But yeah, I agree. Number 6, we exhibit greater emotional regulation. Well, that certainly isn't true.
No. Number 7, they show increased mindfulness and present moment awareness. You're always distracted, Tony.
What? And number 8, final one, they display stronger long-term thinking patterns. Maybe.
How can you make these sweeping claims just based on someone organizing or cleaning up while they cook?
I do like that. But the thing is, there are people out there who read these articles and genuinely believe it and think this is true. There's whole magazines and articles and websites devoted to this stuff. And I want to investigate more. I want to know who these people are that can make these wild and spurious claims.
I do too. Well, Tony Five is our foreign correspondent in London, England. Tony, it is always such a joy. It is always such a pleasure to have you on the show. And you are, according to science, well adjusted based on the very fact that you clean while you cook.
Oh, David, I am not a psychopath because I clean my dishpans, before eating my dinner.
I wonder if like Dahmer or like Jack the Ripper cleaned
Ted
while
Bundy,
he cooked.
he never did that. That's why.
It all started the first time he went into the kitchen. He didn't clean as he cooked. Tony, thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Coming up next, when flirting isn't about attraction at all. Some people use charm as a tool, not a spark, a tool to get ahead. The psychology of selfish flirters in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Break through the busiest time of year with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. With real-time guidance and endless ways to move, you can personalize your workouts and train with confidence, helping you reach your goals in less time. Let yourself run, lift, sculpt, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Flirting. It can feel romantic, or at least flattering for the person being flirted with. But what if some people flirt less for that connection and instead to do it as more like a social power move? Tonight, we are going to talk about the psychology of flirting. Some people do it for love, others for favors, and everyone else, I guess, in between. I'm here with Braden Hall, who researches this area. He's an experimental psychology researcher at the University of Alabama. Braden, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I love that your area of focus is flirting. What inspired you to go into this area of study?
Yeah, honestly, I just always enjoyed flirting with people myself. And so I wanted to do a PhD and do research in social psychology because I just find that interesting. And there's not a lot of people that research flirting, but it's something that everyone does at least like a few times in their life. So I always just found it really interesting. And I've always been interested in what we call sexy research, which is like research that people find like very attractive and interesting. So like no disrespect to the people who study like how many things we can remember at once. But I just find this stuff really interesting.
No shade on them, although it does feel like you're throwing a little shade on them. I'm a little offended you didn't flirt with me at the commercial break, but I guess we're here to do something professional. Okay, before we go any further, we got to talk about these personality traits, these triads or whatever, the dark personality traits. What are they? I mean, I've heard about them before, but they're always so fun.
Yeah, so narcissism is the one that most people have heard of. So people who are narcissistic tend to be very unreasonably entitled. So they think that they are the best thing since sliced bread. And so the world owes them tons of things that they don't owe other people. And then there's Machiavellianism, which is based off Machiavelli's The Prince, which is basically people who are very tactically manipulative. So they see people as kind of a means to an end and as kind of like pawns in the game they're playing. So they almost always have like an ulterior motive to do whatever they're doing.
So we got self-involvement, we got manipulativeness. What's the last one?
And then psychopathy. These people are like very callous and unemotional, but they're also very erratic and impulsive. So these people, like the guy who like does like wheelies on his motorcycle, but like doesn't really have like a lot of empathy for people. Like he's a little psychopathic.
So if he causes a car accident while doing a wheelie, doesn't care.
Got it. No, not really. Yeah.
Okay, so these are the kind of dark traits. Where do we associate them, or how do we associate them with flirting? This seems a little troubling, especially because we all have friends who are flirts.
Yeah. So not a lot of people have studied like the personality traits associated with flirting, and a lot of psychologists just tend to study like the things that like help us in the world and like the things that like make us happy and allow us to flourish and stuff. And until recently, people have seen these dark traits as very just like wholly bad, basically. Like they cause people to be less satisfied with their life. They cause them lots of personal problems. But there are a few areas of life where these personality traits actually confer somewhat of an advantage. And so I was always interested in how these traits can actually be advantageous to the people that have them. And so flirting is an area where these types of people tend to do rather well. Um, and they do so with this like instrumental flirting because it's very easy to, like woo someone or whatever when you don't really care whether they get upset about anything. You're just trying to get something from them.
Now, are there reasons to flirt that aren't trying to get ahead? Like I'm imagining the early days of me dating my girlfriend. We spent all night texting each other, flirting. The end goal was to form a romantic bond. That's got to be one kind that isn't that a lot of people do, and surely that can't be associated with dark personality traits.
Yeah, totally. That's like by and large the most common reason that people flirt. So we call that relational flirting. So you're flirting to just enhance the intensity of a relationship. So people flirt with strangers to try to become like a little closer to them. And then throughout relationships, people continue to flirt to strengthen that relationship. I mean, there are several different motives, but yeah, the people high in the dark traits that we found are rather uninterested in that kind of flirting. That's like boring. Except narcissistic people, they were slightly interested in that, likely because they just enjoy any positive attention that they get from anyone.
So on this other category of flirting, like someone who might do it, I don't know, to get a raise at work or to get a promotion or to get a discount on something or, I don't know, to get a hand in their social group to get more social standing, even though the people they're flirting with, they would never actually pursue romantically. What about folks who do it like that?
Yeah, like we found those people tend to be a little higher in the dark traits. And it kind of boils down to the fact that most people view flirting as kind of a special behavior that we reserve for people that we are romantically interested in. So we don't just flirt with people just for whatever. But these people view it the same way that you might view like giving someone a tip or just like complimenting someone. It's just like a tool to do whatever. We recently did another study and found that students higher in narcissism are more likely to flirt with their professors in order to try to get like higher grades or make the professor like them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I never had that ability because I'm not attractive, but I wonder if I would have used it had I had been attractive. How do you even go about studying this stuff? Do you lock a bunch of attractive people in a room, set up cameras, and say go? I assume that's not your methodology.
No, I tried to do that, and the university had a lot of problems with that.
You can't lock people in rooms. How many times do we have to tell you?
We for this study we asked social psych studies we just ask people and most people surprisingly are very open with their dark personalities. Like a narcissistic person is very happy to tell you that they think they are better than everyone else. So we ask them questions like that. We give them different personality inventories. And then we ask them basically in across a bunch of different situations, like how well do you think you flirt in these situations? And they just kind of write on a scale. And then we asked two people that knew them well. So we asked people like, hey, go find two of your friends or your mom, has she seen you flirt? Or like your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. And then they report like, how well do you think this person flirts? And then we can average all that together to get a pretty good idea or the best idea we can get about how skilled someone is.
Now, surely the setting matters. Like, I don't know, if my friend flirted with the bartender to try to get discounts on drinks, it wouldn't bother me. But if someone is like in the workplace in a serious meeting when we're trying to get work done, being flirtatious, I'm like, man, that's so inappropriate. Does the setting matter where we flirt?
Yeah, so the setting does matter for people who care about the setting. So for like, hopefully like me and you, like we're not flirting with our bosses or like flirting, I don't know, like at church or something like that. But yeah, like in a bar at a party, we might be flirting like a lot more. Or if we're, just trying to get something from someone. But people hiring these dark traits, they kind of view the situation as like a moot point. So if they're at work, all they're thinking is if I get my boss to kind of think that I'm attractive and that I'm kind of into them, then that's a way for me to step up the ladder. Or if they're at like, like the supermarket or whatever, and they want someone to do something for them, So the setting matters less for those types of people. But there are definitely places where it's like less socially acceptable.
For someone who's listening and thinking to themselves, man, the other day someone flirted with me, flattered me. Were they doing it for themselves to get ahead? Were they doing it for me? What's an important takeaway from your study?
Yeah, I would say pay attention to what they do after. So if like you think a woman was really interested in you at the bar and you buy her a drink, and then when you turn around, she's like gone. She really didn't think much about you, but she really liked your wallet a little more.
All right. Well, next time someone flirts with me and then asks me to bring out my checkbook, side note, who brings out a checkbook these days? I will, I'll second guess it. Braden, thanks for coming on the show and sharing a little bit about your research. I appreciate you talking to me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Braden Hall is an experimental psychology researcher at the University of Alabama. In a few moments after the upcoming break, do you actually know how your dog is feeling? Like when you read its face, or are you just projecting your own mood onto them? Well, a new study suggests we may wildly be misreading our pets. Why that happens and why that matters in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The last show with David Cooper.
We have lived with dogs as pets for thousands of years, but are we any good at reading how they feel, knowing what their emotions are? Well, a new study suggests that our own mood might mess with us and how we perceive dogs more than we realize. So we are going to discuss this with Dr. Holly Molinaro, an animal welfare consultant at Animal Wellbeing Solutions in Arizona. Holly, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Before we get into the study, I mean, I'm a cat owner. I know this is about dogs, but we assume we're pretty good at reading our pets, right? Like, what made you suspect that the average pet owner might not be as good at it as they think?
Yeah. So a lot of this stems from people research. So there's a lot of research on how we as humans understand other humans' emotions. And that literature shows that we're actually not that good at that.
Great.
Yeah.
I was about to say, well, I think I'm pretty good at reading people. I'm probably not.
Yeah. So I kind of just took all those ideas from the human literature and was like, if we're that bad at reading human emotions, I have an inkling that we're probably even worse at reading animal emotions. So I really took the same ideas from people and just tried to apply them to animals.
I remember the first time I was petting a cat. I was a kid. I didn't grow up with pets, and it started purring. I'm like, what is happening right now? This animal's about to bite me. I think our default read on animals, for example, showing teeth. We smile and we show teeth. If you show like a chimpanzee and orangutan your teeth, them's fighting words.
Yes. Oh my gosh. But still so many people are like at the zoo and they're like, oh, look at that chimpanzee. It's smiling at me. And I'm like, hey, please step away.
No, it's basically saying, I'm going to bite you if you don't leave me alone.
Yeah, it's a threat. It's a threat.
So how do we test this stuff? How do we test how good we're reading, how good we are at reading animals in plain terms?
So a lot of it is survey work. So showing people videos, pictures of dogs, and asking them how they think that dog is feeling. It's a little tricky because even as researchers, we don't 100% know how the dog might be feeling. One way we do that is kind of try to understand just positive or negative emotions. So giving a dog a treat, we can assume the dog is feeling some sort of positive way. Yelling at a dog, saying you did something bad, we can assume the dog is feeling some type of negative way. So first we have to kind of induce a dog into that emotion. And then we ask people, how do you think the dog is feeling?
Interesting. Okay. And how good were people at doing that?
Yeah. So with this study, we looked at mood. So in the human literature, if you're in a good mood, you're more likely to see another person in a good mood. If you're in a bad mood, you're more likely to see another person in a bad mood. So we did the same thing. What we did was we primed people, which essentially just means put them in a good or bad mood. And we did that by showing them pictures of for happy, like a child at a birthday party. For negative, it was like a car crash. So yeah,
it's gruesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you either horrified people or you stimulated them with very positive imagery.
Exactly. Or of course we have a neutral condition, so people just looked at like a teapot or something.
I really like tea. That might put me in a good mood.
Yeah,
I'm
there you
derailing at this point. Okay, so you kind of prime people and then you show them the dogs.
Yes.
And you find the way you prime them actually enters into how dogs are read.
Yes.
Don't you?
Yes. So what was interesting about this study was the first time we did it, there was no effect. So even though we had people that were extremely happy, they saw dogs and rated them exactly the same, which we were like, that doesn't make sense because in the human literature, this trend follows. So what we did was we primed people with dog pictures. So this time we had like a puppy in a teacup, which was so cute for like the happy. And then we had like a dog behind bars, like all sad, right? And
You're locked up for life, young man.
It was,
I got it.
They were kind of sad photos, to be honest. And then we did the same thing. We showed them the exact same videos. And this time, what we found is that if you're in a positive mood from seeing all these positive dog images, you're actually more likely to rate dogs as more sad. So if you just saw a bunch of cute dogs and they made you feel really happy, you're more likely to rate dogs' moods as sad, and vice versa. If you just saw a bunch of really sad dogs behind bars and you see a dog, you're more likely to say that dog is happier.
What does that say about us? I mean, here you are, like animal researcher. You've gone to school, and all of a sudden you're like doing psychology work. What does this say about us?
I think it says, number one, we need to be a lot more humble when it comes to understanding our dog's emotions. I think we have such a strong inclination that we just know that you can just look at a dog's face and instantly know what they're feeling. And our research shows that there are just so many little things that are subconscious that are going on in our brain that we don't even recognize are impacting how we actually perceive their emotions.
Can we extend this to cats? I was at the vet the other day and I'd never heard my cat hiss. And my cat was really upset. He was wearing a onesie because he had a little skin thing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take the onesie off before the vet got in the room. And my cat starts hissing at me. And I know logically that if a cat starts hissing at you, back off. But my tomato had never done that. And there I am worried about him. He's got a little rash on his chest. That's why he was in the onesie. My worry for him let me cloud how I saw him, and I should have just known. Of course, I got scratched the worst I've ever been scratched in my life. I forgive him. We've made up. Don't worry. We trust each other again. But does this extend to cats as well?
Absolutely. I'm sorry for Tomato that I had to put my cat in a little onesie too. She hated it. Absolutely. So cat research is actually like 20 years behind dog researchers, but I would say that the stuff still applies. I would say it applies to the chimpanzees at the zoo. I would say it applies to reptiles even further. I think we anthropomorphize animals, which means we just attribute human characteristics onto animals. And we do that. It's a natural thing for humans to do. And that's fine. Again, like if you're like playing with your dog and you're like, oh, my dog looks so happy. Or you're playing with your cat and you're like, oh, my cat loves this. But when we start to assume that we know what the cat or dog or animal is feeling and then try to give them proper care and we're misreading it, that's where it can be an issue. So I definitely think it applies to all of our animals.
At the risk of derailing, you mentioned cat research is behind dogs. Is there a systemic bias against cat in veterinary sciences? Like, is there?
I don't think anymore, but there definitely was. I mean, even now, research coming out of Oregon State, Dr. Udell, shout out to her. She's awesome. She's looking at like how cats bond with humans, and actually they love their humans more than their favorite food or their favorite treat or their favorite toy.
Aw.
Yeah. So I just like all these new research is coming out that cats are actually love us, and we can train a cat just like you can train a dog.
Our cat is sort of trained when he feels like doing the tricks. He can shake, he can high five, he can roll over, but it's anyone's guess whether he'll listen.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the study, back to dogs. For dog owners listening and thinking like, okay, I could be misreading my pet. What's one thing from your research that we could learn to do it better, to try to read our pets better?
Yeah. So I had two things. So one thing, number one, is just to be aware that I'm not the best at this. And just once you start to kind of take those blinders off, you can start to be like, you start to see the world, the animal world, in a whole new light. Like, hey, maybe I actually am wrong about how my cat or dog is feeling. But then you can start to look at your own dog's personal emotional cues. What does your dog actually do like when you take out the treats or something. And you can even be like your own little animal behaviorist and have a little notepad or write on your notes app on your phone and just keep track of what your dog actually does in certain situations. And then you can kind of be more in tune to your dog's personal emotional cues.
Interesting. So if I know my dog's happy, like when I bring out treats and it does something like, I don't know, wag its tail, move its head, who knows what, and then he exhibits that same behavior out in the dog park, then I know for sure, or at least I'm more on the right track.
Yeah, you can start to, build up evidence, build up your data, your own personal data, and kind of do your own little study and see and learn your dog's own cues. Because also every dog is going to be different, and we know that.
Well, Holly, it has been a joy talking to you. Thank you for sharing details of your research. I know that I'm bad at reading dogs because, quite frankly, I'm not a dog guy. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Holly Molinaro is an animal welfare consultant at Animal Wellbeing Solutions. That's in Arizona. Coming up next, what if your healthiest New Year's resolution doesn't involve a gym, a fancy tracker watch thingy, or sweating your way through January? We're not talking about physical fitness, but social fitness. That's right, a New Year's resolution goal around connection might matter more to your health than protein shakes. So we'll discuss how setting goals around small social interactions and reaching out to your friends might be a secret to boosting your health in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Olivia Culpo here to tell you all about the launch of the new Abercrombie Spring Denim collection, made the way denim should feel. Their denim has always been a staple in my wardrobe and has a wide range of fits, styles, and washes. Every jean is available in both their classic fit and viral curve love. Shop in the app, online, and in stores.
Please be advised that the following program contains audio content that may be graphic and potentially triggering for some listeners. This content may include descriptions or sounds that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Every new year, we promise to hit the gym, eat better, sleep more. And if that's not your New Year's resolution, it's probably somebody close to you's resolution. But what if the best one isn't physical at all? This year, you ought to be training your social muscles, working on your social fitness for the new year. So I'm excited to discuss that with Recreation and Leisure Studies professor at the University of Waterloo, Troy Glover. Troy, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
I love this for two ideas. One, I sometimes find myself lonely. And the other, I don't go to the gym, and social fitness is a way for me to be fit, isn't it?
Yes, and you're not the only one who's lonely. I think we live in a society where increasingly we're recognizing that we're living through a crisis in loneliness and social isolation. So you're not alone in that regard.
So what is social fitness? It sounds like, I don't know, it sounds overly technical, but what does it mean in practical terms?
Well, it's really similar to physical fitness, except for applied to social relationships. It's the idea that we should take a proactive and intentional approach to our social relationships and build those relationships intentionally.
So if I take a New Year's resolution like, I'm going to be a better friend more, I'm going to be more social, I'm going to go out, it's vague. And I sort of remember talking to somebody about the science of New Year's resolutions, and I remember them saying they got to be like measurable, they got to be something actionable, they got to be something you can do every day, not just some vague, North Star goal like I'm going to go to the gym more. It's no, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and I'm going to track my progress and all that kind of stuff. So what are some ways that we can measurably improve our social fitness?
Well, I will say a good start is to actually commit to your relationships. And by relationships, I mean all types of relationships. So that can include intimate others. It can include your neighbors and coworkers. It can include strangers. So the idea here is goals are good. You can always decide that you're going to say hello to so many people on the street, that you're going to get together with your best friend, so many times a month. these things will definitely help you along this pathway.
Yeah, something like I'm going to reach out to 3 friends a week, and then track it. Let's talk about if we don't do these things, if we fall into loneliness, if our social fitness is not great. How bad is that for our health? Not just mental health, but like physical health as well.
It's not great. And in fact, the best thing that we can possibly do for our health and well-being that we're increasingly realizing through an enormous body of research is to cultivate warm relationships of all kinds. If we fail to do so, then what we find is that people have increased risk of mortality, of greater morbidity, these sorts of negative things that we all want to avoid in our lives. So as much as we pursue things even like solitude, which we may view as, time to ourselves, healthy and, with respect to just giving that time to ourselves, I think that we need to push ourselves to connect with others, understanding that the health benefits are just tremendous.
So I find myself sometimes like canceling plans last minute, or when my girlfriend proposes we go to this party from this vague acquaintance, I think, man, there's nothing I would rather do less than that. This JOMO, the joy of missing out. The comedian John Mulaney, I think in one of his routines says canceling plans on friends is like heroin. It can feel great. And on the surface, we can say it's for good reasons. Like, we want to get more rest. We want to set boundaries with people. We want to stay in and work on stuff. But maybe this isn't the right way to do it. Maybe this can lead to isolation, can't it?
Exactly. And it's just like physical fitness. Look, I'd love to go to the gym every day and I want to lift a lot of weight, but that's a lot of work and that can sometimes be intimidating. And similarly, when it comes to our social connections, often it's easier to say no or to avoid connecting with others because we want to avoid the social risk. The idea is just as when we work out physically, over time it gets easier and easier. It's the same deal with our social relationships. The more we exercise our social muscle, the more comfortable we are in social settings, it just becomes easier.
I found myself after the pandemic, like wondering, how was it that I went out every night pre-pandemic and I was so social and I felt like a part of a big group and it felt so easy, and now it just feels so arduous. And I guess it's just that, like my social muscles had atrophied and you got to work on them like anything else. If you're training for a marathon, a 5-kilometer, 5-mile run seems easy, but if you haven't ran in 10 years, it's going to feel difficult. Working on it a little bit every day, I think there's an importance to that, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And be kind to yourself. I mean, we're all different. I may want to meet with 5 people this month and go for coffee. Other people, maybe it's just that one person, reconnecting with them. But it all is positive for our health and well-being.
Now, for those where it's not just like, I got to text a friend more, for those who feel a deep sense of shyness or social anxiety, where this is like more deeply rooted and it's not just, I don't feel like it today. What do you recommend to folks like that who do suffer from social anxiety?
I'd say start small. I mean, it could mean just going out in public and giving a nod to somebody else, smiling at them. These sorts of cues may seem trivial, but they actually matter tremendously in terms of our feeling connected to something larger than ourselves.
Does small talk matter, like chatting with your barista or the cashier or saying hello to a stranger who you happen to be sitting next to at a park? Do these little things matter?
Absolutely. And in fact, I would encourage all of your listeners to talk to everybody in every context. Cashiers, baristas, people you encounter along the sidewalk when you're on a walk. These all make a difference in terms of just, again, exercising that social muscle, getting comfortable talking to people and feeling good about making connections with other people.
Are all the tendrils of our social interactions, whether it's small talk with a barista or a deep connection with a longtime friend, does this contribute to something called your social infrastructure? And if so, what is that? Can you speak more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Social infrastructure refers to the networks, institutions, spaces that all facilitate or afford that sort of social connection. And they become really important because they help facilitate those interactions. So the more that we can invest as a society in social infrastructure, the more likely we're going to address the problem of social isolation and loneliness.
Is there a way to gamify this? Is there a way to turn a New Year's resolution of improving your fitness into a fun game? Like, I don't know, do this number of things a day or do that number of things a day?
I think that's a great idea. Anything that you can do to motivate yourself and push yourself to be more social, the better it is for you and for everybody else, including your community.
Knowing that a lot of people face loneliness, you mentioned it at the beginning of the interview. If you could convince everyone listening, everyone out there, just to make one social change in 2026 that could meaningfully improve their well-being, what would that be?
Acknowledge people you encounter through smiles, nods, or just pleasant comments.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Troy, he said as he pleasantly smiled at his guest. I appreciate this chat, and I think this could be helpful. And for anyone worried that they missed January 1, they could try their New Year's resolution February 1. Why not? It's less pressure. Troy, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, David.
Troy Glover is a recreation and leisure studies professor at the University of Waterloo. Did you know about the Last Show podcast? If you like anything you heard tonight and want to listen to it again, or maybe you missed an evening of the show and you want to catch the whole program, fear not. Check out the podcast. Subscribe to it. Where to find it? Head to our website at www.lastshow.pizza. That is .pizza, not .com. Or just search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app. Coming up next, that friend who's always late. Are they being disrespectful, or is their brain literally losing track of time? They might suffer from time blindness. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
What's more annoying than dealing with a friend or coworker who's chronically late? But what if we shouldn't be so quick to judge? What if it's not rudeness and thoughtlessness, but a brain that experiences time differently than you? Enter time blindness. What is it? Well, we're going to discuss that with author and psychotherapist, Dr. Stephanie Sarkis. Dr. Sarkis, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
When someone is always late, what is the first thing you listen for as a therapist? Like, how do you tell whether it's someone's brain, whether they're experiencing time differently, or just a behavioral choice?
I think when we think of choice, we have to be kind of careful with that, because when we are running late or we are getting in trouble with friends or family because of our time perception is different, or in school, you're waiting till the last minute to get projects done. Sometimes there's a moral thing of, well, if you just tried harder, if you just worked more at what you're doing, if you weren't lazy. So I think that when people run late, they generally do want to be on time. Who doesn't want to please their partner or friends or teacher? So we need to look at the fact that this might be related to issues with the brain, particularly executive functions, which are in the frontal lobe.
Fair enough. But for some people, clearly, it must be just procrastination, not them experiencing time differently than everyone else.
It depends. It depends. Some people have procrastination that has a brain back, reason for it. And some people have procrastination that is related to other stuff. So it really depends on what the other things that we're seeing at the same time. So if it's a cluster of things like difficulty showing up on time, difficulty estimating how much time it takes to get projects done, difficulty with seeing the timeline of time. So things are either now or not now. When you look at that cluster of things, then we look at possibly time blindness.
Okay, well, let's talk about time blindness because it sounds abstract. How do people who experience it actually feel time passing? Like, I'm always glancing at my clock. I think I'm pretty good about estimating, like, oh, this drive's going to take 45 minutes, having a good concept of where I am in that journey, how many minutes have elapsed. I think I have a pretty good handle of that stuff. For someone who's time blind, how would it be different?
When you have time blindness, you will be in a room without a clock and somebody will ask you, how much time do you think has passed? And you either over or underestimate, and it's by a lot. So it's not just that you're overestimating or underestimating of 5 minutes. We're talking, 15, 20, 30 minutes. You have a schedule, you know that there's traffic, you know you need to leave early, but somehow you still are not able to get out at the right time. Or you think, you know what, this project's going to take me about 10 minutes to do, when in fact it's an hour. It's a large discrepancy between what time should take and what you actually estimate it to be.
And what can someone who experiences time like that do? Is there a way to sort of function like the rest of us, to not be chronically late, or I suppose chronically early also?
Well, that's the other thing that happens if people are chronically early. That's the part of time blindness that we don't really talk about as much, is that sometimes people will show up super early because they know they tend to run late. And that's also not an efficient use of time, right? So if you're sitting in a doctor's office for an hour early, there are other things you could do. And you know that if you just go get some coffee and come back, you're still going to be not arriving on time. So it really hinders how people live their lives. And so one of the things you can do is do adaptations, block schedule your calendar. Also use timers. Have a partner, friend that checks in with you to let you know, hey, are you going to that thing in 5 minutes? You probably got to leave now. And also, if you think that this is a sign of other things, like if you're having other brain issues like difficulty with remembering things, difficulty with motivation, difficulty with anxiety, it may be worth talking to a mental health clinician to get an evaluation.
That could be something like ADHD, I suppose. When we hear ADHD, we think just disorganized. That's got to be a misconception, though, right?
That's part of it. And ADHD also, again, has to do with the executive functions of the frontal lobe. So that means an issue with motivation, difficulty with time estimation, regulating your moods. So it's part of a cluster of different symptoms.
Interesting. Okay, so how much shame might someone carry around when they have time blindness and they're chronically late? Like, you must speak to clients or people that feel like they're perceived as rude, lazy, broken, that sort of thing.
A lot of shame. Yep. A lot of shame, because people are treated differently. They're treated differently by friends and family. They're being told that, well, you don't really care about me because you didn't show up on time. And this is a person that really makes every effort to try to be on time, but it just doesn't happen. And sometimes they don't know why it's happening. They know that they have a hard time estimating time, but it's made such a huge impact in their relationships. It's even led to relationship breakups.
Now, when reading about this, I stumbled upon something called the fear of arriving early, which was just wild to me. Are there people that are scared of arriving early to things, and so they cut it too close? That, coupled with a bad idea of how time functions, that can be the perfect recipe for disaster. Can you say more about this fear? Have you encountered this before?
Yeah, it can be tied to social anxiety and other types of anxiety. So if you show up early to something and you're the only one, there's only about 2 other people there, it can really put a lot of pressure on you socially to interact. So that could be an issue. Also, what do I do if I show up early and I don't have other people that I can kind of monitor or observe to see what I'm supposed to do? It can create a lot of issues for people.
I am blessed to live with a wonderful partner who I love very much, who's very patient with me. She is not great with time. She is chronically late. She does her best not to be for work, but for social stuff and like theater tickets or whatever it is, dinner reservations. And it drives me insane, Dr. Sarkis. What can I do? Should I just be more patient? Like, what those who interact with and live with people who are chronically late, be it because of time blindness or not, what do you recommend?
I think we need to look at that. This is someone that's probably not doing this personally to you, right? It's something that someone struggles with. And people do live with shame and guilt because they're not able to be on time. Now, if she's on time for work, maybe it's that there's immediate sanctions if she doesn't show up on time at work. But we hope that the people that we live with, the people that we're related to, are going to be a little bit easier on us and love us unconditionally, and so we can be ourselves. So there's not as much pressure. So the flip side of that is that she's probably a wonderful person, has a great personality. So we have to look at in a relationship, what's the other side of it? Right? Why did you fall in love with her in the first place? And we all have stuff that, again, like you said, your partner's tolerant of your stuff. So it's looking at, well, you know what? Maybe they're late. So let's figure out together how we can make sure that this doesn't happen.
True. And she has that strange brain disease where she thinks dating me is socially acceptable. And so I have to give her credit for being late sometimes. But I got to play the troublemaker here, the nudnik. There's got to be a fine line between just an excuse to say, hey, I'm time blind, when you're actually rude and thoughtless, versus someone who actually like needs to work on some mental health stuff or has some issues around time perception? Where is that line? Or am I oversimplifying by saying that?
Well, if you have ADHD or anxiety or depression that causes you to have issues with lateness, you're still responsible for the behavior. You're still responsible for seeking out help for it. And still, you should apologize if you've upset someone because of your lateness. And that has nothing to do with guilt or shame. It's just being responsible to other people.
So making your friend sit there at the restaurant for 45 minutes, not even texting, showing up late, you can't just say, hey, I'm time blind and expect everything to be okay.
There's also the thing of, if you care about people and you're empathic, you text somebody and go, hey, I'm running late. Or you tell the person, you know what, I'm late. You have every right to get up and go. And then as the person that is waiting for that person, you can say, you know what, here's my limit. Here's my boundary. I'm going to wait about 20 minutes and I'm going to text that person. And if I don't hear from them, I'm going to go. And so that's the natural and logical consequence. And that happens because your time's valuable too.
For someone who's listening and thinking, oh no, this is me, I'm that late person, what is one small realistic change someone who's chronically late can do to make things actually work better for them?
Set timers. Set timers for everything. And you can have timers that talk to you. You can have your watch will give you a little ding or vibration when you need to do something. That's essential. And also, again, if you feel like this is impacting your quality of life, seek an evaluation from a mental health professional.
All right, well, you can check out Dr. Stephanie Sarkis' book, Healing from Toxic Relationships. That's available wherever books are sold, or go to stephaniesarkis.com. Dr. Sarkis, thank you for talking to me today. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
In just a few moments, essays that sound brilliant but mean nothing. Students outsourcing their brain to ChatGPT. That is the state of university education these days. But one professor has a bold fix. Fight AI with AI. How it works and how that prof is using large language models for oral exams up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Students are using AI to write their assignments in university, and perhaps the best way to fight that, fight AI with AI. One professor at NYU Stern School of Business ditched essays for AI-run oral exams. That's right, a professor is using AI to force students to think, explain, and prove they actually understand the work. The very thing that ChatGPT allows students to cheat on. I'm here with that professor. His name is Panos Ipeirotis. Panos, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So before we talk about the novel way that you've been preventing students from using AI in school, let's talk about the problem, a sort of existential crisis in universities right now, where students are just using large language models to pump out their assignments in seconds, in minutes. Talk to me about the state of things with that.
Yeah, let me start by saying I don't mind students using AI. Actually, in my class, I encourage students to use AI. However, what we noticed is that they don't yet know how to use it to their advantage. At least a subset of the students don't know how to do that, and they fully outsource their thinking to the machine. And this is something that we don't like. We want them to, even if they use ChatGPT and LLMs to create their deliverables, we want them to know what they deliver. We want them to know the material. And increasingly, what happens is it's very hard to tell whether someone knows the material or not. It used to be you're getting the exam, the homework, you could tell, oh, they don't know what they're writing about, or they know what they're writing about. Increasingly with LLMs, this becomes very hard to do for written exams.
I'm not going to admit to cheating, but in undergrad, I'll just say this. My ex-wife was an English literature major, and I took one English lit class, and somebody helped me with my essay. And I remember the teacher calling me to his office to go through my essay and started asking me questions about it, and I couldn't answer them. Is that kind of the thing you're experiencing when you go through students with their work and then you ask them about it, they don't understand what they wrote?
Yeah, actually, the assignments that we had in class they were not even heavy-duty assignments. They were supposed to prepare students for the discussion that we were going to have in class. And instead of seeing the class being fully prepared for the class discussion, we're getting these very well-polished submissions, but silence in the classroom. And we realized, well, we need to do something. Otherwise, they will not learn anything by the end of the class.
So when you put a student on the spot and ask them to defend or explain their work, what is that what you just observed? Like silence and lack of understanding?
Blankly saying, I don't know. I cannot say anything. You see? Don't worry, just say it with your own words. Very simple. Silence. At that point, we were sort of like, we need to do something.
Okay, so enter the oral exam. This is something that used to happen a lot in schools if we look in the last, I don't know.
Yeah, we still have it. Medical board exams, bar exams, PhD defenses are all oral exams. This is the gold standard in a sense.
But when you have many students and many assignments over a term, the practical nature of grading oral exams, I don't know, let's just say you have 50 students and you want to do 10 assignments. I'm no mathematician, but that's 500 mini oral exams. It's just too much work for a professor, isn't it?
It's not even that it's too much work. The logistics of trying to schedule, 50 different half-an-hour slots that are mutually convenient, this just becomes very, very hard.
As the host of a radio show who exactly has to do that every day, I completely empathize with you. Okay, so where did this novel idea of using AI to actually conduct these oral exams, where did this come from?
Yeah, we had a seminar, and Brian Zabarian, who will be a new professor at CMU Heinz next year, he talked to us about AI interviews and how companies are hiring people using AI interviews, which I thought it was, mind-boggling. And not only they are doing that, but he realized that AI is actually better in running these interviews than the humans. Humans get tired, humans get frustrated, humans have biases. So AI tends to be a very, very good administrator of knowing, okay, I need to ask these questions, I need to go through this material, and they don't get distracted, they get back on topic, and so on. So if it worked for 70,000 job interviews, I thought that they would work for 35 oral exams in my classroom.
Now, we're not just talking about conducting the exams and then you grade them later. Are you using AI to actually help you grade? Can I accuse you of doing the very thing the students are doing, AI to do your assignment?
Actually, we had been studying AI grading for quite a while. I think that finally we're reaching a point where AI is really good in not only grading, but actually giving very detailed feedback. To tell you the truth, I have graded every single exam myself before giving it to AI to make sure that everything works. And
which is what students should be learning. If they're going to do submissions using AI, they should also understand them and go through them manually as well.
To make sure that whatever they are submitting is actually correct and makes sense. Yes, I agree. So yes, we also used the council of LLMs. We gave the same transcript to 3 different LLMs to grade. Then they consulted each other and they came up with a deliberation and then a final grade. And I compared all my grades against the council, and I realized that the council was actually stricter than me, but very consistent and had a lot of evidence for their grades and very good feedback for the students.
Now, did the students enjoy this? Did the students say that it was more stressful? I want to know how the students thought of it, and then we'll talk about getting these results. Did they actually understand the material more when you did it?
They didn't like it.
Well, no, because it sounds harder than just cheating.
Yeah. They found it a little bit more stressful than the regular exam, and they didn't like the voice. We borrowed the voice of my colleague Foster Provo, who has a very distinct and very imposing voice. They found it very frightening and very stressful during the exam. They found it that very entertaining, but on a real note, probably will change it next time. And they were, but on the other hand, students, they found the experience more stressful, but they also agreed that it tested the real understanding of the material. So we didn't get any complaints about fairness or accuracy of the grading and so on. So they were.
From your vantage point as a professor, do you find that students going through this process actually learned more, actually understood the source materials better?
I hope so. And next time we will ask the students actually to design the tool with us. When we'll start teaching in a couple of weeks, we'll be using this as the product that they will be designing and learning from.
We don't have a ton of time. I mentioned a sort of existential crisis in academia where students can just turn out papers using AI. This AI to fight that crisis, do you think this is the path forward?
I expect us to see wide deployment of such technologies. I believe that for job interviews, it will happen a lot, and a lot of screening interviews will be done in this way. And I expect education will follow.
Well, Panos Ipeirotis is a professor at NYU's Stern School of Business. Panos, thank you for joining me. I appreciate the chat. Thanks for sharing what you did in your course.
Thank you.
Coming up, what do Persian ice pits, 2,500 years of dessert evolution, and a France versus Italy war have to do with your ice cream scoop? Don't go anywhere. We're digging into the delicious history of ice cream.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
The other day, I was walking in the cold and I saw someone who I thought was a schmuck eating ice cream in -1,000,000 weather. But then I realized maybe there's a rich history behind ice cream. Maybe ice cream isn't this new food and perhaps something with over a 2,000-year-old history. Well, once I looked it up, I found out I was correct, and we're here to talk ice cream with Dr. Garritt Van Dyk, who's a senior lecturer at the University of Waikato in New Zealand, who knows a thing or two about the delicious snack. Chip, welcome to the program.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
So do you think the average person would be surprised to find out that ice cream has a rich tradition? I would have just assumed it's one of those foods that, like, I don't know, came with the refrigerator and not something with a rich history.
Yeah, I think a lot of people take it for granted. I don't think people necessarily realize that this goes all the way back to ancient Persia. So for me, it's fascinating to look at things that are deeply embedded in our daily lives and stop and think, well, how do we get here? How did this happen? And then I sort of pull on that thread of the sweater, and it unravels and unravels and unravels. And then suddenly it's, 550 BC, and I'm looking at a huge dome-shaped structure in ancient Persia that was used to make ice cubes.
Okay, so it wasn't like there was bodegas in ancient Persia with bodega cats and I went in and I opened the freezer and got a drumstick, or as my mother calls it, a nutty cone. It's a much more complicated process getting ice back then, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Your Korean grocer doesn't necessarily have it. So the ancient Persians figured out that in the desert, you could use evaporative cooling at night in the winter to create ice. And then they would store it in these huge sort of beehive-shaped structures, which had like a solar chimney at the top to pull out hot air and a place at the bottom to bring in cool air, and that allows them to store ice year-round. So rather than having to go to your nearest mountaintop and carve out a block of ice, they were able to make it in the middle of the desert, which I think is a pretty cool way to start.
It is. And for people who don't realize, evaporative cooling is amazing. I grew up in a climate with relatively, moderate humidity, so I never knew this until I was in a desert and I put a wet cloth on me in 100-degree weather, and all of a sudden, as the water evaporated off the cloth, that thing dropped 20, 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It's an amazing effect, and I guess the ancient Persians figured out how to take advantage of it.
Yeah, so it's fascinating that they figured this out and they exploited it. And then that technology spreads as we get the Arabs coming in and conquering Persia in, let's say, 650 AD. And when that happens, they bring in their own bit to the equation, which is they go from using, let's say, rose water and honey to make sort of a shaved ice type of deal in ancient Persia. They bring in milk and sugar that they've got from their trade routes. And when they do that, we start to get the very first rudimentary forms of ice cream. And they're thickened with things like salep, which is an orchid root, or with mastic, which is like this gum that comes from an evergreen. And so suddenly you get this really weird, stretchy, kind of stringy almost ice cream, which you can still find on the streets in Turkey. But yeah, so that's sort of the really earliest ice cream we get is during that period.
And that's really living for ancient peoples. You'd think they would use this amazing technology for storing crops and meat, and I'm sure they did. But once you've got the farming infrastructure, once you've got the cold storage infrastructure, that's when humanity really can start enjoying delicious treats, which is obviously what we did.
And this is really important because dessert is the most important of any meal, and you should definitely eat it first because life is short, right? So,
You're not a nutritionist.
No. That's right. Cultural historian. It's an emphasis on where do the good times come from? But yeah, that's and then it progresses from there as they start to unravel the science. So by let's say the 16th century, they start to figure out, and we still get that period in that sort of early modern period where there's this really fine dividing line between magic and science. So we get this book called Magia Naturalis by Giambattista della Porta in Italy in 1568. And he's describing how you can use potassium nitrate, which is saltpeter, which most people think about with, let's say, gunpowder. And you put that into ice, and then suddenly you get much lower temperatures. So your ability to freeze things without having to have enormous amounts of ice suddenly becomes available to you. And so suddenly he figures out that technology. You fast forward to 1690, and suddenly people are saying, this is great, but you know what? You could even do it with salt. And suddenly the ability to freeze things on demand becomes really easy. And now we start to get things like the first gelato.
Now, I imagine at some point, the sugar trade comes in. We're getting our dairy from the cows in whatever country, but raw sugar to make delicious ice cream, that had to come into play as well.
Absolutely. So the prices of sugar dropped dramatically during the 17th century as the Atlantic sugar colonies come online. Obviously, a great cost to humans, as enslaved Africans are the workforce. But with that, sugar prices start to drop. So something that was limited to the apothecary, the pharmacist, and as a medicine for the very rich, suddenly becomes within the reach of more middling people. And it plays a big part because sugar is an antifreeze. So just we know that alcohol is an antifreeze, but sugar is also an antifreeze and helps prevent crystallization. So it starts to give you a much smoother texture than anything that was made before with honey. So it starts to make your ice cream really smooth.
And of course, European colonizing countries like France and Italy, of course, they pretend they invented ice cream at this point, I imagine, or at least they claim to have come up with the first recipe, as you would assume they would have.
Absolutely. And there's, always in matters relating to taste and food and even wine, you get this battle amongst the Europeans for who was first. So, around about 1690, we get two different countries that are battling for it. So we get Alberto Latina and we get Nicolas Odiger in France, and the two of them basically claim to be the first. So Alberto makes something that's kind of like a gelato with the kind of sort of candied fruits that you would normally associate with a fruit cake or a Christmas cake. And he's got those in a milk base together with some sugar, and that becomes sort of the first rudimentary gelato. And Nicolas Odiger, he was actually formerly the head of the household and chief cook and butler for Jean-Baptiste Colbert, who was the chief minister for Louis XIV. He had actually gone to Italy for 18 months to train in making ice cream. And when he came back, he made all sorts of improvements to the techniques that were being used there. So in 1690, he starts publishing recipes for sorbets and ice creams. And these are really, they're much smoother again, because he figures out you got to routinely scrape it down. You got to do this, you got to do that. Different improvements on the Italian recipe with technique that actually produce something that's really very much like the ice creams that we have today, but obviously being made artisanally, by hand, very labor intensive, so only for the very rich.
Is there any other links that get us from like late 1700s, chefs of rulers, chefs of people who work for rulers to like my example at the beginning here, the bodega?
Yeah, so I suppose one of the things that's in there is Nancy Johnson, an American innovator in 1834, develops the ice cream churn. And so what happens is you've got a sort of a bucket on the outside, you've got an inner liner, in between you've got crushed ice and salt, and in the inner liner, which is like this metal bucket, she's got something called a dasher, which is kind of like a spatula meets a spoon with some holes in it, and a crank. And so what happens is, as you pour your milk and sugar and fruits and things into the middle, it gets chilled and naturally freezes from the outside in. But with the dasher and the churn, as you move it around, it scrapes down the side, so it breaks up all the ice crystals. And with the holes, it actually incorporates a little bit of air through the mixture too, and allows it to flow through. So you get a much smoother consistency. And rather than having to have a whole household staff full of people saying, would madam like some ice cream? Suddenly it's like you could be on the front porch with your ice cream churn and turn the handle, and now you can make your own ice cream at home.
And now you can do it with one of those KitchenAid machines. You don't need to do it by hand. Chip, thanks for the history lesson. Quick question, though. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
So my favorite flavor is actually, it's going to be a Southern Hemisphere flavor, but it's a macadamia brittle. So imagine sort of like it's sort of a Southern Hemisphere version of maple walnut. But yeah, so I love the richness of macadamia nuts, a little bit of candied brittle in there, very creamy and delicious.
I'm just glad you didn't say mint chocolate chip. That's literally toothpaste ice cream, and that's a debate for another day, I'm sure. Chip, thanks for the history lesson. I've enjoyed talking to you about ice cream.
Thanks for having me, David.
Well, Dr. Garritt Van Dyk is a senior lecturer at the University of Waikato in New Zealand. Up next, a study that looked at 6 million romantic couples reveals people with similar mental health struggles attract. Why? Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
We know that couples tend to line up and match based on politics, religion, and lifestyle, but there's new research that suggests that we might be choosing romantic partners who share our mental health struggles, not by accident, but because people who have similar minds to us somehow feel familiar, easy to understand. I'm here with someone who's looked at this research. She's a senior lecturer in social psychology at Birmingham City University. Her name is Mariel Marcano-Olivier. Mariel, welcome to the program.
Hello.
So looking at data from more than 6 million couples, this study did, zooming out, were there anything surprising there, or did it just confirm things we already knew about how people match up?
I would say for me, not necessarily surprising, but one of the things that I found really interesting was if you see the mental health diagnoses that were more likely to, should we say, find each other, couple up, partner together, it's the symptoms of each mental health condition rather than the mental health condition matching sort of as a whole.
Can you give me a specific example of that? I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, you might find that someone who has a substance abuse disorder might find a relationship with someone who has ADHD. Now, this might be because both disorders, there is some interaction with impulsivity. So people with substance use disorders struggle with willpower, impulsivity, things like that. Sometimes people with ADHD struggle with those things as well, those executive functions. And so we find that people with different mental health conditions, but who can understand each other on the basis of symptoms sort of fitting, that kind of might bring them together. So, for example, you might be more likely to meet someone in a bar if you have a substance use disorder, and then you meet someone else who is in the bar who is very impulsive and exciting, and that's why they love going out to bars so much. And so then those two people meet sort of as a result of or linked with their mental health condition, but not necessarily them going, hello, I have this mental health condition. Do you?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think we're all used to the idea of people matching up because of politics or religion or similar lifestyles, or maybe being in the same course at university, having the same socioeconomic bracket. Mental health similarity, this idea of matching based on it. Has it been overlooked? Is this sort of a new area of research until now?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily been overlooked. This study was the largest study. In fact, I personally haven't seen a study with 6 million, and that's 6 million couples, I think, 6 million pairs. So even more people in this study. And so this is the largest scale study that's ever happened. So whilst it has been explored before, there are lots of things, smaller sample sizes, the participants that would come forward, perhaps biasing the data. And so these sort of smaller studies might have had more variables, so things outside of the study that are impacting the actual findings. Whereas a study as big as this with 6 million spousal pairs, that is such a large amount of data that we can be very confident in this result. So it has been studied before, but we weren't as confident about it. And now we can be, now that we have that really big lot of quantitative data.
The phrase assortive mating, I've run into it before, but can you define it for me quickly and talk to me about how it fits into this data?
Yes, so assortive mating is essentially the way that we describe selecting partners based on their attributes. It's literally that you assort mates depending on who fits you better. Now, for someone with a psychiatric condition or a neurodevelopmental condition, so let's say autism, somebody with autism might really struggle with things not following a certain time frame or time scale. And then someone with OCD might also struggle with people not following a time scale. So then those two people might sort of meet each other and be, and as I sort of said earlier, have that sort of like completing one another thing. And for some people, it can be really, really wonderful. But for others, of course, it can be a bit more toxic, a bit more damaging.
Someone might hear us talking right now and think, oh, someone with ADHD and a substance use disorder might pair, someone with depression and another person with anxiety might pair, and that might to them sound like an unhealthy dynamic. I'm not sure it is, but what would you say to someone who heard that, hey, people pairing with similar mental health struggles might produce unhealthy pairs?
I think that is absolutely something that we that could be considered, but I do think that there is absolutely more to this study and these findings than that. I think that the understanding, the empathy, the experience sharing that you would have with your partner if they also experience mental health struggles, I think that is part of what helps keep people in these couples together, and it's that positive side of it that can be a lot more influential than sort of the negatives. Now, of course, many of us will have known people who've been in relationships, and you sort of think, oh, that person's perhaps a little bit a bit chaotic, and this person's a little bit perhaps needy, and then the chaos and the need for stability doesn't necessarily match up, and so whilst they both have mental health conditions, but their symptoms don't align, and that can then become really quite toxic. But when you have, for example, say 2 people with autism, it can be a really fulfilling thing for people with autism to be in a relationship with another neurodivergent person, because they don't have to explain every aspect of their lived reality, which can be so different for neurodiverse people when compared to neurotypical people. For example, so I'm autistic, and if I was to come in and sit down on the sofa next to my partner after a long day at work, he knows not to talk to me for like 45 minutes. And then after 45 minutes, I'll be more than happy to talk because I've sort of calmed down, I've decompressed. And he knows that and he understands that because I need that for my autism. But somebody who doesn't understand neurodiversity might find it really rude if their partner comes home, sits down and doesn't talk to them for 45 minutes. But that's something that really helps our relationship, because rather than coming through the door, my partner trying to talk to me and me being like, no, can't, and that causing problems, it's much nicer because 45 minutes later, I'll put down my book, I'll put down my phone, and I'll be like, I'm ready to talk now. But sometimes people without neurodiversity or without mental health conditions won't necessarily understand that need for space. So you can absolutely have toxic relationships as a result of this. But I think what might then be overlooked is the real positive and fulfilling things about having someone who shares your crazy.
That was well said. It could be true for anxiety, depression, other things too. Having someone who really understands or has similar symptoms to you, even if the disorder is different, I think can make for a good couple. And I appreciate you answering that question that way. A huge study like this, 6 million couples, 12 million individuals. What questions would it open up, or what things would people want to look into next from this huge set of data?
Well, I suppose if it was me personally, what I would want to do would be to understand the data in a deeper way. So at the moment, what we've got is quantitative data. So it's just numbers. And the people whose data is in this study, they probably aren't aware that their data is in this study because it's secondary data. So this is insurance data. So what I would actually prefer to do would be to have interviews. Now, obviously, I can't conduct 6 million interviews, but it would be really fantastic to interview a subsection of people to see what those benefits are and what the cons are of that lived experience in those relationships. That's what I'd personally like to do.
Mariel Marcano-Olivier is a senior lecturer in social psychology at Birmingham City University in the UK. Mariel, thank you for talking to me today. I appreciate your time.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap on the show for the night. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, The Last Show Podcast. Head to our website for more details. That's at www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. Or if you search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app, we'll pop up. Discover interviews from this show that you're going to love. All right, I got nothing else. I'm David Cooper. This was not the first show.
My name is Jordan, and I'd like to invite you to join me on The Canadian Gothic, a podcast covering stories of Canadian crime, mystery, and the offbeat. The Canadian Gothic blends the spirit of late-night talk radio with the depth of a documentary film and applies that approach to both developing stories and historical cases. So if you're drawn to the dark, mysterious, and offbeat, search for and subscribe to The Canadian Gothic wherever you find podcasts.
You were listening to Canadian Gothic.